Indianapolis, Indiana. A small tire and wheel shop on Crawfordsville Road, 4 blocks west of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The smell of rubber and road chalk and the faint petroleum sweetness of new tire compound hangs in the warm afternoon air. A collections agent named Dodd arrives at 2 o'clock with a court summons, a debt ledger, and a manner that belongs to a man who has confused efficiency with cruelty. Earl Briggs is 60 years old. He has run this shop for 19 years on the same cracked concrete slab his brother helped him pour in the spring of 1944. In 15 minutes, a debt he does not owe is going to take it from him. Here is the story. Earl Briggs came back from the Pacific in December of 1943 with a Bronze Star, a perforated eardrum from a mortar round on Guadalcanal, and a complete and permanent indifference to the opinion of men who had not been there. He had grown up in Speedway, Indiana, the small town that wraps around the northwest corner of the Motor Speedway like a hand around a cup. His father had worked the infield concessions for 20 years. Earl grew up knowing the sound of race engines the way other boys grew up knowing birdsong. He learned tires at 16, working a pit crew for a midget car team that raced the clay ovals around central Indiana on summer weekends. He opened Briggs Tire and Wheel on Crawfordsville Road in April of 1944 with $2,000 he had saved from 3 years of military pay and a loan from his brother Calvin for the equipment. He paid Calvin back in 14 months. He mounted his first tire on a Monday morning and had not closed the shop on a weekday since. He knew tires the way very few people know anything, which is to say he knew them in his hands and in his ear, and in the smell of the rubber under the heat gun. And the drivers and mechanics who came through the Speedway every May knew it and came to him for it. Earl kept the shop going through the lean winters when the Speedway was dark and the race business dried up and the bread and butter was farm trucks and family sedans coming in off Crawfordsville Road. He kept 2 men on the payroll year-round, brothers named Dwayne and Curtis Potts from Speedway, and he paid them every Friday without fail through the slow months and the slow years. He kept his accounts in a gray ledger on the shelf above the mount and balance machine. He paid his bills on the first of the month and his taxes in April, and he had never once in 19 years been taken to court for anything. Then, in October of 1962, a supplier named Hendrick Tire and Parts out of Cincinnati sent a shipment of 16 commercial truck tires that Earl had not ordered. Earl called Hendrick's office the day the shipment arrived and told them the order was not his. The woman on the phone told him someone in their office had made a clerical error and the tires would be picked up within the week. Earl held the tires in the back of his shop for 9 days. No one came. He called again. A different person answered. They had no record of the conversation. They had no record of the error. They had a signed delivery receipt with Earl's shop address on it and a purchase order that had his account number on it, and they were going to need payment for 16 commercial truck tires at $42 each. $672. Earl hired an accountant on West Washington Street to write a dispute letter. The accountant charged him $60. Hendrick's office sent a response that acknowledged receiving the letter and restated the invoice. Earl wrote his own second letter with the name and date of the woman he had spoken to in October. Hendrick's office sent the account to a collections firm in Cincinnati called Dodd & Associates. Dodd & Associates sent 3 letters between January and April of 1963. The third letter had a court summons attached. Dodd himself was coming to Indianapolis in May during Speedway month, when every road in the county was busy and every business on Crawfordsville Road was running full, and the timing was not an accident. Dodd parks his rental car in Earl's lot at 2 in the afternoon on a Thursday. He is 40 years old, trim, with the kind of haircut that costs money and the kind of suit that costs more. He carries the ledger and the summons in a slim leather briefcase. He walks into the shop the way a man walks into a place he has already decided belongs to someone else. Earl is at the counter writing up a ticket for a '59 Ford pickup whose owner is waiting in the plastic chair by the door. Dwayne is on the mount machine. Curtis is in the back breaking down a semi-truck wheel the size of a wagon. Dodd sets the briefcase on the counter. He introduces himself. He opens the ledger to the page with Earl's account. He explains, in the patient voice of a man who has explained the same thing many times, that the debt has been certified by the courts and that non-payment will result in a lien against the business property and its contents. He uses the word unfortunately once. He slides the summons across the counter. He clicks his pen. Earl looks at the summons. He looks at Dodd. He looks at the Ford owner in the plastic chair. He looks at Dwayne on the mount machine. He picks up the summons. He reads it. He sets it back down. "I did not order those tires," Earl says. Dodd nods. He has heard this before. "The purchase order has your account number, Mr. Briggs. The delivery receipt has your address. I called them the day the tires came in. October the 9th. A woman named Patterson told me they would pick them up." Dodd writes something in his ledger. "We have no record of that call," he says. Outside on Crawfordsville Road, a pale yellow Ford Galaxie with California plates pulls into the lot and stops at the air hose. The man who gets out is lean and quick in his movements, 32 years old, wearing a white t-shirt and a pair of Levi's with the cuffs turned up once. He has on a pair of dark aviator glasses. He has been in Indianapolis since Tuesday. He came in for the month of May, the way men who love racing come to Indianapolis in May, quietly and without a schedule, to be near the Speedway and the sound of it and the smell of it. He is staying at a motor court on Georgetown Road and spending his days in the infield and his evenings wherever the evening takes him. The Galaxie's left rear is running low. He saw the shop from Crawfordsville Road and pulled in. He fills the tire at the air hose. He walks into the shop to pay the air charge, a dime in the box on the wall. He drops it in. He looks at the counter. He looks at the man in the suit with the briefcase. He looks at Earl with the summons in his hand. He looks at the Ford owner in the plastic chair who is watching the whole thing with the particular stillness of a man who wants no part of it but cannot look away. He does not leave. Where are you watching from? Drop your state in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches. He leans against the wall beside the door with his arms crossed and his glasses still on, and he listens. He listens the way a man listens when he is deciding whether what he is hearing is what he thinks it is. He listens through Dodd's explanation and through Earl's response, and through the part where Dodd says the courts have certified the debt and the part where Earl says the woman's name again, Patterson, October the 9th, and Dodd writes in his ledger without looking up. Then the man in the white t-shirt says, from the wall beside the door, without moving, "How much is the invoice?" Dodd turns. He looks at the man. $672, he says, plus the collection fees of $140, $812 even. The man nods. He looks at Earl. "You didn't order the tires?" "No," Earl says. "I did not." The man looks at Dodd. "You have a woman named Patterson in your client's office who told this man the tires were a clerical error and would be picked up." "We have no record of that call," Dodd says. "That doesn't mean the call didn't happen. It means your client's office lost the record of it." "Those are different things." Dodd recaps his pen. "Sir, this is a certified debt. The courts have." The man pushes off the wall. He walks to the counter. He reaches into the back pocket of his Levi's and takes out a wallet. He counts out $900 in 50s and sets them on the counter in a stack. He puts one finger on the stack. That covers the invoice and the collection fee and leaves $88. He looks at Dodd. "You write him a full receipt. Paid in full. No lien. No further action. Today." Dodd looks at the money. He looks at the man. He looks at the man's face, and something shifts in the way things shift when a face becomes a name. He writes the receipt. He takes the money. He closes the briefcase. He picks up the summons from the counter, folds it, puts it in his breast pocket. He walks out. His rental car leaves the lot and turns east on Crawfordsville Road toward downtown. Earl looks at the receipt. He looks at the man. He knows the face. Every man in America who has ever watched a movie or read a magazine knows the face. The man puts his wallet back in his pocket. He picks up his glasses from the counter where he set them while he counted the money. He puts them on. "You keep good records?" he says to Earl. 19 years, Earl says. "Every ticket. Find the Hendrick order and pull it. Then write a letter to the Indiana Attorney General's Consumer Protection Office. Tell them what happened. Invoice number, dates, the woman's name. Send a copy to the Better Business Bureau in Cincinnati. Dodd's firm works on volume. When the paperwork costs more than the collection, they stop coming." Earl nods slowly. He looks at the receipt. He looks at the man. "Mister, I will pay you back. Every dollar." The man picks up his glasses. He shakes Earl's hand once across the counter. He does not let it go long enough for it to become a scene. "Buy your boys lunch," he says. He nods toward Dwayne on the mount machine and Curtis in the back. They stayed. He walks out. He gets in the pale yellow Galaxie. The engine catches cleanly and he pulls out onto Crawfordsville Road heading west toward the Speedway. And the sound of the engine rises through the gears, and then settles and then fades, and the lot is quiet again, except for Curtis still working the semi-truck wheel in the back and the Ford owner in the plastic chair who has not moved since Dodd walked in. Earl Briggs followed the advice exactly. He pulled the Hendrick file and wrote the letter and sent copies to the Attorney General's office and the Better Business Bureau and his own accountant on West Washington Street. The Attorney General's office opened an inquiry into Hendrick Tire and Parts in August of 1963. The inquiry found 11 other disputed invoices across Indiana and Ohio from the same period. Hendrick settled with the state in November and issued corrected account statements to all 11 businesses. Earl's account was cleared. The $62 he had paid the accountant for the dispute letter came back to him in a check from Hendrick's insurance carrier in December. He cashed it and bought Dwayne and Curtis each a $20 bill and kept the rest without ceremony. He ran Briggs Tire and Wheel on Crawfordsville Road for 14 more years. He retired in 1977 at 74, when his hands told him it was time, and not before. He turned the shop over to Dwayne, who had been with him since 1951, and Dwayne ran it another 9 years before closing it in 1986 when the chain stores came to Crawfordsville Road and changed the arithmetic. Earl kept the gray ledger. He kept every ticket from every year on the shelves in his garage in Speedway, Indiana, in chronological order, in cardboard boxes with the year written on the end in black marker. He kept the paid in full receipt from May of 1963 in the front cover of the gray ledger, folded once. The way he kept things that mattered. He died in 1989 at 86 in the same house on 30th Street where he had lived since 1947. His daughter Margaret found the ledger on the shelf in the garage with the receipt still in the front cover. She read it. She knew the date, and she knew the month, and she knew what happened at the Speedway in May, and she had her own ideas about who had come in off Crawfordsville Road with California plates on a pale yellow Galaxie. She did not say it out loud for a long time. She said it finally in 2004 to her own son, who was 30 years old and had grown up hearing about the shop and the receipt without knowing the whole story. The ledger and the receipt are in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum on 16th Street. Margaret donated them in 2005. They sit in a small case near the east entrance alongside a photograph of Earl's shop taken from Crawfordsville Road sometime in the early 960 seconds. The sign above the door, 2 cars in the lot. Dwayne visible in the bay with a tire iron in his hand. The placard below the case reads, May 1963. A man came into Briggs Tire and Wheel on Crawfordsville Road during Speedway month and paid a debt that was not his. He gave one piece of advice and shook one hand and left. Earl Briggs followed the advice. The shop stayed open 14 more years. He was the king of cool. He never cared about the rules, but he always knew how to do the right thing. If this story reached you, do me a favor. Pass it on. Share it with a motor enthusiast in your life or a friend who never bows to the system. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. There are more McQueen stories coming, and unfortunately, they don't make rebel souls like Steve McQueen anymore.